Hey guys, so we're going to start doing a number of lessons that are all related around semantic elements. Okay, so what are semantic elements? Semantic elements are really just elements that have meaning. So we've been talking about HTML gives us structure. There are some elements that have been introduced for HTML5 that provide that structure and tell us exactly what each piece is. So we're going to start going through that and building the pieces of our website and practice those different semantic elements. Okay, so if we look at a web page and we could see a bunch of different web page parts. Okay, now depending on what we're looking at for a web page, there's always going to be some stuff that tends to always show up on almost every page. There's always going to be some type of navigation that you always see, whether it's some type of 2-column or 3-column layout. If you have pictures and you have text, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the type of website. There's going to be some fundamentals that you are expecting to see on any web page that you look at. Okay, we'll have different parts. We'll have sections, articles, a side. We'll go through each one of those. We have a footer, and most websites you'll end up seeing the header. Okay. Now, before I jump into this, and I'm going to kind of explain it, HTML is the element that we have to have that's going to show that everything within that container is HTML elements for building our page. The body is an element for everything that we see. I don't have those here because the body in the HTML technically does not need to be done on CodePen. But if you were doing your own web page from scratch and we weren't working on Chromebooks, we would make sure that we had those too. There's a couple other elements that we will be doing later on, but for right now, we're just focusing on the visual part. So the first part that we are going to focus on is the header. So I've identified them on these 4 different versions, and we'll go into some examples to kind of explain that. Okay, so the header, here's the syntax. It has an opening tag and a closing tag. Okay, remember this is a left bracket, then we write the word header, not in caps, and then we close it with a right bracket. The closing tag is almost exactly the same, a left angled bracket with a slash, then we finish off with writing header and then a right angled bracket. Okay, we use the header to represent it's a container for introductory content. Or say a set of navigational links. So you may end up finding some heading elements. So that's like maybe an H1 and H2 all the way up to H6. You might end up having a logo or an icon show up. Might also have some author information. Okay, and like what it said, it could also have navigation links. You could also have a header for maybe an article header on part of your page instead of just the very main header. So you could have more than one on a page. You just need to make sure you're using it correctly. So let's look at an example. Okay, so this web page, when we first arrive to it, the header would be this background image right here with Chloe's name on there, what she does or her job, a little picture. This would be kind of like her logo. And then we have her navigation. All of this is more than likely nested inside of her header. It's used to kind of introduce people to the page. It's what we see first before we want to start scrolling down. So it's introductory information. Okay. So we will end up practicing building with that, okay? Now, like what I said before, when we get ready to build, I will show, but CodePen does not require us to have to use the HTML and the body tags for us to build our structures since it's already embedded in there, okay? Now, moving forward, the next one that we end up having inside of the header is usually the nav, and that stands for our navigation. It has an opening and a closing tag. We have a left angle bracket followed by nav, a right angle bracket, and then we close it the same way. It just has a slash. We use this to define a set of navigation links. So it's not just if you're going to have one link, do you need to put it inside this tag? but if you have a number of them. So when we looked at our example again, we have a list of navigation links right here. Okay, so these would be inside of the nav. Okay, so that's an example of the use. You could have multiple nav elements on a page. Maybe you have your main navigation, which is at the very top. Maybe you have a set of supplementary navigation that is on the side of your page as you're scrolling down. So it kind of depends, but this lets browsers know that you are talking specifically in that section about navigation. Okay, and then for the header, other pieces that we will most definitely see as we are building our list. Things that go together should be together. Okay, and there are 3 different types of lists. I have 2 on this page. We have an ordered and an unordered list. This is what an ordered list looks like, where it will number them, and we can choose to number from, incrementing up, decrementing down, maybe using letters, Roman numerals, whatever we want. Okay, and then we have unordered lists, which are usually bullet statements. Now, it defaults with a circle bullet, but we could end up doing squares and stars and icons and logos and whatever we want once we get into CSS. Okay, the idea is not the look, it's the structure. Okay, you put things that go together as a list. So for all of our navigation links from Chloe, these are all navigation links, so they all are part of a list. Okay, and even though that list is inside of that nav element, we are still pairing them together because that's how they go together. Okay, so we would use ordered lists if we want a numbered list, and all of this can be modified. Okay, so here is an example OL for ordered list. It has an opening and closing tag. Each item in your list is, you surround it with the LI element, which stands for line item. Okay, so it's left angle bracket, LI, closed angle bracket, then a left angle bracket slash LI, a right angle bracket. Okay, that's for each item in the list. So if I was to build this right here, coffee, tea, milk, I would open up my ordered list, write each one for a line item, and close my ordered list. Okay, the same way for an unordered list, except I'm using UL for unordered list. I have an opening and a closing tag, and I use this for bulleted lists. Okay, when it doesn't matter if they're in sequence or not. And when I would build it, I also have to use a line item element for each item inside the list, and this is what it would look like. Okay, the last list that we would have, you don't normally see in a header, but I'm putting them together because it's part of a list, is called a description list. So this is an example of it being used. You'll see them in, say, maybe dictionaries, or let's say that you had bands and you wanted to give your thoughts about each band. Music, food, that type of stuff, you could do this. So, coffee, and then we're giving a description of what it is. Milk, we're giving a description of what it is. Okay, this is a little bit more complex to build. We use these, you need these 3 elements to build it. DL for description list, DT for description term. This defines the term coffee. Description, which describes each term. So when we look at using this, we have to open it up with a DL for description list. We're opening it up, and then inside of it, we're putting all the component pieces. The first one would be our term, followed by our description. Okay, then we want a new term. We have to define that inside of the opening and closing brackets for the description term, and then close it with the description. Okay, and then when we're done with our description list, we have to close our description list. Okay, we are able to modify this a lot in CSS, but we're still using it for structure. Okay, so you're not paying attention as much to what it looks like, but to how you're intending to use it. Okay, so we've talked about header, nav, list. And then the last one that we're going to be talking about is the anchor tag. Okay, and this introduces something new that we haven't seen before, and that is an attribute. Okay, so the syntax for an anchor is an opening, a left angle bracket, and then the letter A, and then a attribute. You have to have this attribute as a minimum, but there are more attributes that we could use. And all an attribute is you're saying for this HTML element, this A element, I have one feature that this has. In this case, href stands for hyperlink reference, and this would be the link that I want it to go to. This is the element we would use to hyperlink to go to another page, go to different parts of our page, go to a completely external other site. We would put the link in here, and then what we want them to click on in between our opening and closing anchor element. Okay, so this href, it has to be in there, and that stands for hyperlink reference. And by default, now you guys can modify these with CSS, which we'll go over later, but by default, links will appear as an unvisited link will be underlined in blue, a visited link is underlined in purple, and an active link, one that you are like trying to click on and go to, is underlined in red. So here's an example of how I'd use it. If I wanted a clickable thing that said, say, search Google, I need that inside of my opening and my closing anchor tags. And then for the href, inside of quotes, I am putting that actual link to go to Google. Okay, so let's go ahead and put each one of these in there. So inside of the HTML structure, I am going to be writing in here. Okay, now I'm bringing this up one more time so you guys are understanding. CodePen is not like a full website. I'm not building everything from scratch. There is some code already embedded for me. For us right now, we don't have to write HTML and say that it's HTML5. We don't have to write the head, okay? That's already there. The body is already there, and then what we type, that's the editor HTML, that's us right there, that's what we're going to be typing in. That's already inside of this body element. See, there's the opening body element, there's the closing body tag for the body element, okay, and then there's the closing HTML tag. So I don't have to really write those, okay? So we're going to start practicing now to not write those, okay? But we are only right now in HTML. So we want to build a header for the very top of our page. So I'm going to open it with header. I'm going to go ahead and type header and hit tab, and it will complete it for me. Okay, see, it is an opening and a closing tag. Now, could I type this differently? Yes, I could type header, and then when I want to type a closing tag for it, as soon as I start putting the slashes, it's going to show me what I need to finish. I can click it and finish it. Or I could manually type everything all at once. Okay? So I have to have an opening and closing tag for header. And inside the header, we've seen that you could have a logo, introduction, information. Maybe you're going to have like a main title. So let's do an H1 element. And this is going to be, you know, my main title of the page, or what the page is about. Maybe I'm going to put a paragraph tag inside there. That's going to be kind of like my subheading. All about me. Okay. And then I'm going to do my nav. So inside this, the nav, I'm going to go ahead and give myself some space. The nav is identifying a group of hyperlinks. So inside this nav, I actually want a list. And I want a list of links. So a list of links that I don't care the order of the links would probably be an unordered list. So I'm going to start with UL for unordered list. And then for each of those line items, maybe I have my home, Maybe I have another one that's about me. Maybe I'm going to have for that line item another one that's going to say a gallery. Maybe that's a gallery page or a photo page I'm going to have on my website. How about a contact page? You see those a lot. Okay, so we are structuring it. Now, this home, this about me, this gallery, and this contact me, those are all supposed to be links to go to another page, right? So I would want to surround that. So I'm going to go ahead and write an anchor tag and a closing anchor tag in between those. And if I indent this so I can see it easier, okay, I can even click on here to format to make it so they're indented, because it lets us know the indentation lets us know what is subordinate to what. Okay. So I have an anchor tag, but I did not put the attribute that I need to. So when I hit the space, this is showing different things, different attributes that I can attach to it. I'm going to go ahead and do the href for hyperlink reference. So this would be a link that I'd want to go to, say, my home tab or another page. It is hard to test these in CodePen, so for right now I'm just going to put a hashtag, but in here I would probably put, google.com, and then if I click on it, it will take me to Google. Okay, https://www. Didn't want to connect, but that's what we would do. Okay. Now we could link technically to other CodePens, but this is how we would basically build it. So we would put a link if we were actually on our own web page. It's showing it says a blue on-click link. That is a linkable item. I'm going to do the same thing for all my other ones. href, hashtag, and then I need to close it. If you don't close it, then it will stay open, and then each one of these would also be part of that link. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are closing around all your stuff. That's why sometimes it's good to space them out so you can see, and then occasionally format your code. Okay, so we want one here, anchor, href. This will be a link. But for now, we're just putting the hashtag, so it will show up as a link. It just won't actually take us anywhere. And then for my contact me, I got my last one, href, and I have to give it a link. We're just putting it as a placeholder. Okay, and then we go ahead and format. Okay. So that has it where we're kind of looking at it where each one's subordinate. I like to have my tags all on their own line so we can see them easier. You can see that you properly closed everything. Okay, so now if I go to format, okay. So see how the closing tag for the line item is in line with the line item that's drawing like a straight line. It lets me know that I closed it properly. In UL, if I draw a straight line, I see that the on order list element, that I have a closing one. Now there are some things that I could probably do different. This is all about me. If this is about my page, maybe a paragraph tag is not the best thing. Maybe I might want to have it as H2. That is okay. Oops, and I never closed it, so that would be bad. Okay, so that would be a subheading. You should only have one H1, but you could have as many H2s as you needed for the different parts of your website. We'll go over the heading tags a little bit more on how that would be structured. But this, right here, this code is my header. Header is introductory information. We can have, the main introduction to our page, what it's about. We can have our navigation. We could also have a logo or something into that place. And so we used all of those pieces that we just learned to go over the header. So that's how you would do it. Make sure you guys are paying attention to this when we get into the assignment. All right, good luck. Have fun.